Hey everyone, this is Dr. Malego, and in this video I'm going to give you an overview of the latest version of the template for lesson plans that we're using here at The Rock. So let's dig in. Alrighty, so here we are in the latest SRU Music Education lesson plan template. This template was adapted by the one that PMEA uses, and this is for the Model Curriculum Framework. So basically, PMEA came up with a lesson plan format that they think is a model that educators should use. And so what we're doing is modifying our previous format to fit into this format because that's going to help ease your transition from being a student to being a teacher. This PMEA format is based on the format that is used for the teacher evaluations that you're going to do when you are actually a teacher, when you have to submit lesson plans and whatnot for that process. So it's all a part of building you toward what you're going to need to know in the field. So the stuff at the top is pretty self-explanatory. Your name, the title of the lesson, the dates and times. You'll notice there's plurals there. If you're teaching the same lesson, say it's a third grade general music lesson, and you're going to be teaching it for multiple days and multiple classes, you can have one lesson plan, and you just list all the dates and times. That helps the person who's coming to observe you be able to flip through lesson plans or, electronically or in paper and know that they're looking at the correct lesson plan for the lesson you're teaching. And then you'll include your school and district. If you're doing the lesson plan for a class, you can just list the class that you're writing it for. Check the type of lesson it's going to be. If it's a single day plan, a multi-day plan, or unit plan, you can check those boxes. And then you're going to come to the lesson objectives. And these are the same as how objectives have been before. They're just in a different spot on the lesson plan. I did put the color-coded behavior condition in the degree or performance level. Remember, you can think B, C, D to help remind you of the elements that you need. And you'll just write those here. It's going to keep generating more. So if you start typing one and you go to the next one, it's going to keep numbering them for you. This next part is a little bit new in a way. It's a lesson description, which we had before, but the PMEA format gives you some guiding questions to help you know what you want to say about the lesson. And so you want to take into account those questions when you describe your lesson, and you can just type that in the box right below. The rationale, that's another part that is newer in this, but it's obviously an important part of a lesson plan. So what is the purpose? Why is this lesson important? What specific skills and understandings does it provide? And maybe the most important question here in the rationale is the last one, and that is, how does this lesson fit into the overall curriculum for the course? So again, these questions are coming from PMEA. So when they're saying for this course, they're meaning, how does this lesson fit into your overall curriculum for, we'll say junior high choir, if that's what you're teaching. So what are we doing today? How does that fit into what we're supposed to do over the course of the school year in this class? The next section, we've always listed materials, but how they are on the PMEA format is separating the teacher resources and equipment from the student resources. And so these are just going to be bulleted lists. You'll just put the things that you're going to need. The next section is the standards and whatnot that we used to have kind of earlier in the lesson plan. These are down here lower. Now, I'll tell you that if you go to this link that I have here, you're going to find a lot of resources that will be helpful to you. When we click here on the crosswalk document, the crosswalk document is a huge resource for us. What we see here in the crosswalk document, and a crosswalk is just basically bringing multiple documents together into one document, sort of merging them. This is work that PMEA has done. So they're saying the PA Standard 9.1 matches with this artistic process creating. These are the National Core Arts Anchor Standards that align with 9.1. And these are the process components. And depending on the process component, these are the standards that align. So this document makes it very, I don't want to say easy, but much more streamlined for you to be able to know which music standards you're going to list. You're not really going to have to worry about this 1994 National Music Standards column. The reason that's there is that some school districts are still using the 1994 National Music Standards because following the standards is not a mandate. And so the standards and all of that is something that's managed at the local level in the state of Pennsylvania. And that means at the school district or the school entity, if it's not a district, at that level. And so there are some districts that still are using the old 1994 standards. So this is just helping those people also benefit from this process. Super helpful resource. Let's get back to the lesson plan. So you're going to find all of these different competencies, essential questions, all those things in those documents that I just showed you. Do note that you have to have a PMEA login to access those, but by being PCMEA members, you have that login and you'll be able to use that. So moving on, these are the standards, and this is exactly the same as what you've been doing on your lesson plans. So where you're putting like PA dot, 9.1.3.A, whatever it is that you're putting, or the National Core Arts Standards, that's the one that starts with MU dot blah, 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 and goes on and on. Those are what you're putting here. The PMEA template does not include the PA academic standards for career education and work, but I am including them here because we are required to have you include them in your lesson plans for accreditation. So for the CAPE accreditation that we do, that all the education programs do, not just music ed, we're required to have you do those. So we're just going to keep putting them right there. All right, next up is assessment. So you've been doing this forever. You're going to, again, align the objective, like objective 1, assessment 1, they coordinate. What is different is the PMEA 1 requires a copy of the grading tool or rubric that will be used. So however it is that you're going to actually know that what you're doing is your objectives are actually being accomplished, you're going to include that there. The other thing that is new on the PMEA form is Webb's depth of knowledge levels. Now I do share those when we talk about lesson plans, like in Intro to Music Ed, but they've been on the lesson plan module forever, but we haven't required those in our lesson plans. And those are, the Webb's depth of knowledge is going to give you ways to get to higher levels of thinking, deeper levels of thinking. If you do a Google search for Webb's depth of knowledge, you'll see a little bit of what I'm talking about. This is an example of Webb's depth of knowledge. And what you'll see here, it's a lot like Bloom's taxonomy. We go from level 1 to level 4. Level 1 is just like recalling things like, matching and whatnot. Level 2 is higher level, classifying things. Level 3, we're doing more strategic thinking, and level 4 is extending the thinking. So what you're looking for are Webb's depth of knowledge. Are we recalling? Are we looking at skills and concepts, strategic thinking, extended thinking, and how? I'm having the students classify the musical era that they think that this music is from, and then that's going to put them here, for example. So your goal here is that you're moving the students toward higher and deeper levels of thinking, even in one lesson. So, depending on how long you're teaching, if you're just doing a warm-up, you're probably not going to get very far, right? But if you're doing a multi-day lesson or a unit plan, you should be striving to get pretty far. And even in one lesson, you want to try to see how far you can get with the students. Next up is the instructional process. This is, we called this procedures. Procedures are under this. And the guiding questions here that PMEA gives you: what instructional processes, instructional strategies, and instructional tasks will you use to meet the objectives and goals of this plan? What will the teacher do? What will the students be doing? And so I added in the anticipatory set because we believe that is something that it's very important to get the students in the mindset for learning. And the PMEA template did not include that as pulled out separately. And presumably because teachers will know that the first thing they put in the procedures should be the opening activity. But I wanted to make sure that you saw that and you were able to make sure you fill that in. So you're thinking critically about that. The other thing is they didn't include the time allotments. And I have found that that's very helpful for pre-service teachers and new teachers. And actually, I do it still as a teacher for more than 25 years. I still do that whenever I make a lesson plan. So again, you're just doing the time allotted. What's the teacher doing? What are the students doing? And then what is your closing activity? And even if maybe you're doing one piece of a rehearsal, say in an orchestra rehearsal that you're doing for like field experience maybe, and maybe your other field partner is doing the second piece, you should still have closure on the part that you're doing. So that might be like a run through of the section you've worked on, something, and maybe a little insight as to what's coming next. So tomorrow we're going to work on letters E to F, and I especially want the violins to look at the bowing for measure 70. Okay. Something like that, that's giving them a little bit of an insight into what they're doing and closing what you've worked on that day. Differentiation. Again, we've been putting differentiation in our lesson plans. We're just putting it down here now, how you're going to differentiate instruction, and assessment. This is a new section, essential vocabulary. Just think about the music vocabulary words, and you can just make a list of the words that they're going to use that are music terms. This next section, PMEA calls that district defined and other initiatives. So that includes SEL strategies, and this is in the PMEA template. How does this lesson take into account student mental health and well-being? Do students have a voice and choice in the instruction materials and assessment? And how does this lesson guide healthy student decision-making? So you want to look for opportunities to bring SEL strategies into your lesson. Instead of the cultural connection section that we had, the PMEA template calls this DEIA strategies, but we're looking at similar things. How is this lesson culturally responsive to the school and community? Can students see themselves represented in this lesson? And how does this lesson take into account diversity, equity, inclusion, and access? And one or more bullet points there. In what ways does this subject connect meaningfully with subjects beyond music? We've been doing integration of other subjects for a long time. And then I added a section for any specific information that either your school district, cooperating teacher, or instructor is making an educational priority. For example, many of our school districts will require written assessments to be done, a certain number every week or something like that. So they might say, how are you integrating writing into the curriculum, into what the students are learning? You could put that here, how you're addressing writing. And then the bottom looks just like it always has, with your reflection questions, the 3 that are required, and then we encourage you to come up with a 4th or maybe 5th that is specific to your needs. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you have any questions about lesson plan formats or planning for instruction at all, just reach out to me and I'm more than happy to help you guide you through the way. Thanks.